Hey everyone, Nick Yuskevich here with Daily Fantasy Winners, back for an edition of Tee to Green after a week off, after we got to enjoy the Zurich Classic, of course, in that team event. But we're back here again with the traditional 72-hole stroke play events, individual stroke play. So we've got the Wells Fargo Championship this week. Very, very strong field. It is at a golf course in Quail Hollow that a lot of the PGA Tour players like. It's one of the best fields for a non-major championship or non-WGC. As you can see here, obviously, at the top of your screen here, you'll just see like the top names: Rory McIlroy, Justin Thomas, Rickie Fowler, Jason Day, and so on and so forth. You guys know how good it is. So a couple things for just before I get into the top golfers. The first thing is, if you're doing a course history research, last year, this tournament was not played at Quail Hollow. I actually forget the name of the course it was played at off the top of my head, but it was a different course. The reason for that was because they were prepping this golf course for the PGA Championship. They had gone through, they wanted to update the course, make some changes to it. I think they changed some of the layouts of a couple of the holes, or tweaked them some. They made it more difficult within those changes. I think they redid the greens too, if I'm not mistaken, as well. And so, but this is where the PGA Championship was played at last year, where Justin Thomas ended up winning that. And so we played as a very difficult test. If you do notice here on the tournament history tab, I'll just show you here quickly. The Wells Fargo's right here in terms of difficulty to par, so it's about like the 10th, 12th toughest, looks like here, give or take. 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11, 12. Yeah, it's the 12th toughest on tour. This does not include the data from last year, obviously. We kept this to strictly to the Wells Fargo Championship, so this includes data from 2014, 15, and 16. So it doesn't include 17, just because it's like if you do any research on major championship venues for the US Open and the PGA Championship that are venues that were also used for traditional PGA Tour events, you'll find they play much tougher in terms of relation to scoring average at the majors, just because they'll grow out the length of the rough, make the greens faster, firmer, things like that. So it just doesn't quite play the same, even though it is the same golf course. Some can make the argument we should include it, but we don't here, just so for whatever that's worth. It is a very long golf course at 7,600 yards, as you can see on your screen right here. So obviously a very long golf course. This is a golf course that very much is a strokes gain off the tee course. Approaching the green definitely shows up as well. So very much a tee to green, just tee to green overall. But off the tee is particularly important here. Narrowish fairways, long golf course. So that's pretty much why driving the golf ball is important. You definitely get some penalty strokes that kick in, more so in the back nine, and then that'll especially come into stretch at the very end of the course. The last few holes are very difficult. 16, 17, 18 pars. That goes par 4, par 3, par 4, if you remember how that kind of finishes up. 18 is crazy tough. And so, in any case, that's what we're looking at here. So let's get on into the top golfers. I'll just say this right out of the gate. Pretty much everybody on this list, from Rory McIlroy all the way down to all the guys we're going to cover. Obviously, any of these guys have a realistic shot at winning it. This is obviously, like I said, a very strong field. Not a big drop off here between who's up here between Rory and Justin, and then even going down here as far as Reed, Hideki, Phil, Tiger, Fleetwood, Casey. That's not much of a drop off, obviously, as what we would get sometimes at some weaker PGA Tour tournaments. And so just kind of keep that in mind, that it's not really going to be too many guys here I'd be recommending to fade if you're making a bunch of GPP lineups. And so, but I'll just touch on here quick. Just which guys, if you are trying to fade a few, I'll tell you which ones to do here in just a moment. But we'll start at the top here. Rory McIlroy at 11,800. So Rory is fascinating just in the sense that if you do just take a look at his recent performance, Rory, obviously, he was playing the final group at the Masters. Didn't play well on Sunday. He finished tied for 5th. He won the Arnold Palmer Invitational, and then before that, he had obviously struggled this year outside, or at least on the PGA Tour events. He had been struggling leading up to that, and then he did fine in the European Tour, back in January. He finished, what was it, 2nd at Dubai and 3rd at Abu Dhabi. Yeah, so Rory was doing well there. So it's kind of fascinating because Rory's price and odds were kind of down where you'd see, Rickie Fowler's or Jason Day's, type of a thing for this tournament right here. That's where it would have been prior to the Masters and prior to the Arnold Palmer. And I think I made note of this in one of the videos. I think it may have been leading up to the Masters, if I'm not mistaken. But it's just a very, very quick switch now to see how the odds and people's perception of Rory have changed just all of a sudden, kind of based off of one or two performances. And I don't know, it's just one of those things where if you were playing Rory all along, then you've been rewarded here, obviously, over the last couple of weeks, or a couple of times he's played. But if you've been actually concerned about Rory, and all of a sudden he's looked good here over the past couple of weeks, are you sure you really want to buy into that out of the gate? Or out of these last two tournaments? And so I'll just bring up here with Rory on the strokes gained putting regression tool. If you can see right here, Rory is a oops, that's Sabatini. Let's get Sabatini out here. Rory McIlroy at a minus 0.57 this year regression, because he's putting at a 0.59, which is very much above what Rory is used to be doing. I know, obviously, I'm sure I mentioned this before, but there's been a lot made to do with the putting lesson he got from Brad Faxon leading up to the tournament. What was it, the Arnold Palmer Invitational, where he won. And so maybe it's possible, he's improved his putting a little bit with that, but I still have to, 0.59 still in a season, that's still running pretty hot. I'm not going to buy the Rory's one of the best putters on tour. I'm perfectly fine with buying he is an average putter or slightly above average. I think that's perfectly fine, even with like some potential improvement, but 0.59 is pretty hot, so I'm not sure if I'm really wanting to buy into that. And then the other thing I will say as far as Rory goes is, if I can find it, so he's 21st off the tee, which is obviously a good thing here for strokes gained this season. Very much like seeing that for this golf course, but 97th and approaching the green. Rory, and again, at the Masters, I still wasn't that impressed with Rory's approach game. There was one stretch in the tournament, and honestly, it was a few weeks ago. I don't even remember what day it was, but there was a stretch in there where Rory's iron play did get hot, but it was only for like a round, maybe like a round and a half. It was something like that, and other than that, it was pretty cold, and that's obviously more just going off of like greens in regulation and eye test as opposed to strokes gained, because we don't get strokes gained statistics, as you guys know, at the Masters someday, hopefully. And so so it's just one of those things where it's like, Rory is Rory obviously could win this tournament. He has won here before, obviously. That I'm sure that's helping out his odds here and him being the most expensive. But truth be told, here I think because of the putter running hot, him being the most expensive, the approach in the game not still as strong as I'd like to see. Rory is probably not my favorite play to dump a ton of ownership into here, and so I'm it's just one of those things where I think it's fine if you want to play him a little bit, but if you're making a bunch of lineups, but I would say he's not one of my favorite plays here this week, as far as the top guys go, at least, of course. So moving on to the second guy on our list, who is, I think it's Justin Thomas. Yeah, Justin Thomas here at 11,300. So I like Justin Thomas a little bit more than Rory. I still think it's a little bit of a hefty price to pay, and I'm sure a fair amount of people will own him just because, his recent performance is really good as of late. 17th at the Masters, not amazing, but not bad. Second in Mexico, and then he won the Honda. Actually lost in a playoff in Mexico. That was to Phil. He won the Honda Classic, tied for 9th at the Genesis, 17th at Mexico, 14th at Sony. Outside of his Hawaii, outside of Kapalua, which is, it's not an exhibition, obviously they're trying, but it's like the warm-up tournament. Justin Thomas has been very consistent, playing very well this year. He won the PGA last year. Form's great. All the statistics check out, really. 28th off the tee, 6th approaching the green, 63rd around the green, that's fine, whatever. And then he's 37th putting. As far as the putting regression tool goes, Justin Thomas, I believe, why is he not showing it? Oh, because I'm on the tournament history tab. Sorry about that. Justin Thomas is a minus 0.33 because he's running slightly hot, maybe at a 0.451, but so Justin Thomas's putter is running slightly hot, but that's really the only bad thing I can say. Is that, his putter maybe he's running slightly hot, and the fact that his price is kind of expensive at 11,300 and he could be a little bit higher owned. Those are the only real negative things I can say about him, which isn't much. So I would say that if you really like Justin Thomas, definitely do not blame you at all. I would say go for it. Fading who would not be a good idea in my opinion, unless you're making like one lineup. Then you could fade him, obviously. But so yeah, that's probably I would say definitely like Justin Thomas more than Rory. I don't say I would consider him like a top play, like a bold or I got a top play that you must play him type of a thing, but very much like him if you want to go ahead and play him quite a bit. So okay, let's see here. Rickie Fowler. He is actually probably my favorite GPP play. I like Justin Thomas more in cash than Rickie Fowler right now, but I like Rickie Fowler the most here for GPPs. A few reasons. Number one, pull up the putting regression tool here, and Justin Thomas, nope, not Thomas Peters. I'm getting a bad habit of doing that. Justin, I can't type. Justin Thomas, oh no, I want to look up Rickie Fowler. Sorry, guys. Not thinking straight here tonight. Rickie Fowler, so plus 0.28. Like you guys know, I've mentioned this past. Rickie Fowler ran pretty cold with the putter there for about a good 2 months here. I think it was like over like February and March was primarily where he was running cold. But he's got it back to at least average putting now, and I'm sure he'll continue to improve because Rickie Fowler is definitely an above average putter. I will show in this tab right here. If you look at Rickie Fowler for... Actually, I'll just show you where Fowler is on here. Fowler right here, overall, just this is weighted strokes gained total. I've shown this to you before. Max has him as the 5th best golfer right now, 1.302. That's very reasonable, I think, as far as Rickie Fowler goes. And obviously, if you just do it by strokes gained putted weighted, and we do it by the top, you will see Fowler's going to be up here near the top. Yeah, so Max has him as the 5th best putter, and I think that's absolutely perfectly fine for what his model is designed to do. And so, just want to point out, yeah, Justin Thomas, 3rd best golfer on this thing. That makes perfect sense from earlier. But anyway, so for Rickie Fowler, yeah, so he's the putter's still going to come around more. He's got some positive regression coming. I definitely like seeing that with Rickie. And you're probably going to get a lot more people using Justin Thomas, I think, over Rickie Fowler at 11.3 to 11.1. Just kind of my hunch there on that one. And, you know, if you just take a look at Fowler's recent results, obviously he nearly won the Masters, just fell 1 shot short, and everything like that. But before that, the recent results weren't that great. But like I said, that was pretty much almost primarily due to the putter running cold there for a while. His tee to green game is still very good. He's 56th off the tee. It's slightly worse than what he would normally do, but it's still fine. 33rd in approaching the green, so he's 35th in tee to green. That's fine for Rickie Fowler. He was, and honestly, that tee to green game got off to a slightly slow start in the Hawaii tournaments, which was when you're just getting back into form. And it's kind of important to know that even though we're starting to see the best players near the top of, like, you know, the strokes gained statistics, and we're starting to see that we're starting to get enough data now to kind of start analyzing these golfers. It's still not quite there yet to get like a really good full sample yet. We really don't get that more until once we're in like the beginning of the summer or like Memorial Day type of a thing. We still need a few more tournaments probably under our belt before we really see a good collection of data here for what this season at least brings. And so, yeah, anyways, bottom line here for Rickie Fowler, I do like him in GPPs quite a bit. You could even use him in cash probably, but honestly, if you're doing cash formats and you're, for whatever reason, and you really like Justin Thomas or Rickie Fowler, and you're debating, Justin Thomas probably slightly better play on that one. But but at the same time here, Fowler's definitely, I'd probably prefer a little bit more in GPPs for the reasons I mentioned. Moving on to Jason Day at 10,200. He should be low owned, I would assume. You know, Jason Day's been pretty low owned here recently. He was at the Masters, and that was to be expected. Right now, again, it's the iron play for Jason Day. I was hoping that his iron play would be better at the Masters once he switched irons. That really didn't end up being the case for the most part. He did not putt very well at the Masters, if I remember right. I should have double checked that, but. So yeah, the couple things I like about Jason Day and a couple things I don't like. The things I like are that strokes gained off the tee is 35th, and the other thing I like is that he will be low owned, and his price, given where the other golfers are here, like that just makes me even more convinced that he's going to be low owned, because I think more people would rather play. I mean, I think more people are going to want to play Casey. More people are going to want to play Fleetwood, maybe even Tiger. I don't know. That's going to be a little bit more interesting. Tiger's going to be fascinating for this week, I think, from an ownership standpoint. Be interesting to probably search the web a little bit more on what people are saying about Tiger actually for this week. But yeah, even probably more people are going to want to play Phil, certainly with his course history, and maybe even Hideki. Well, maybe not Hideki, but anyways, what I'm getting at here though is that Jason is going to be really low owned. He should be under 10% owned, I would think, with that price. And so I very much like that. The couple things I do not like for Jason Day are that his putter is crazy hot. 1.386 in strokes gained. So he's at a minus 0.84. I think Jason Day is one of the best putters on tour. I don't think Max has... Well, actually, what does Danny have him at? A 0.55. So Danny predicts him to be one of the best putters on tour. And obviously, you guys can see, look at the data here. Day has been very good here, really, over the last few seasons. I actually curious where Max has him at. I should have double-checked this beforehand. Max has him at a 0.304, but that's weighted a little bit. His data, I believe, is weighted a little bit more toward the 2017 season. And as you can see, 2017 for Jason Day is at a 0.332. So that makes perfect sense, actually. But either way, we're all in agreement, though, that Jason Day is one of the best putters on tour, but obviously being at a 1.3 this year, that's extremely hot. So yeah, the putters bailed him out a little bit on the strokes gained approaching the green. So bottom line here, if you were just only playing a few lineups, I probably wouldn't play Jason Day just because I think they're better options. But if you're making a bunch of lineups, I absolutely would include Jason Day some, because it will be very easy to over-own him, and he could certainly win this tournament, and his strokes gained off the tee is very good. And the last thing I will mention is most of these golfers are playing, not all of them, but most of them, at least in this top portion, are playing their first tournament since the Masters. And guys have spent, their time off differently. I know, Smiley Kaufman got married, and obviously, Jordan Spieth and Justin Thomas and Rickie Fowler, they were at his wedding, obviously. And, I know they did way more than just go to the wedding, but it's everybody, was doing their own thing. Some people are taking time off. Some people may have been grinding away really hard, obviously, with certain things of their game. And so, not saying it's a full-on reboot, but there has been pretty much a month off from golf for some of these guys here, at least as far as tournament play goes. So, I do think there could be a slight more variance and slightly less importance on recent performance for this tournament just overall. So that gives me a little hope that maybe Jason Day was actually, trying to kick it back into gear and maybe working on his iron play a little bit more. So just kind of a little bit more of a hopeful thing for those of you that are trying to play a bunch of lineups and want to include him. So okay, anyways, that's it for the top four guys. I will just say this because I slightly buried the lead here a little bit. I know I've said the last couple tournaments I've really promoted going with a balanced salary method, and I actually agree with kind of doing that this week. I apologize if I buried the lead here on this one, but again, it was important. I was going to say what I already said regardless, but I do think a balanced salary method is a very good idea here, because I think there are a ton of great plays here down in this the 8K range, particularly the top 8K range and everything like that. So I'm just going to run through the 9K range here real quick just to kind of touch on these guys to give you a little bit of an idea on where you could start maybe building your lineups if you don't want to use the top four. Patrick Reed at 9,700. I think that price is a little bit high for him. He is 91st in strokes gained off the tee, 43rd in approach in the green. Not bad, obviously. The off the tee is a little bit bad, but whatever. And then Patrick Reed, obviously, if you do remember, I think he finished second. It was at the PGA Championship here last year. I guess that's worth a note. And obviously, we know he's the defending champion, or not the defending champion, but the Masters champion. He just won the Masters, obviously, a month ago. And I think they're usually, I've mentioned this before, that there are oftentimes for first-time major winners a little bit of a hangover effect the following week, and especially can happen with a tournament like the Masters. And so it's happened to a lot of people. And so this is just a week I would probably pass on Patrick Reed altogether. I think it's worth a fade, even if he's not that highly owned, because I think at least sharp people will know that this is too high of a price for Patrick Reed. But maybe there'll be some public people jumping on him. But I think this is kind of a bad spot for Patrick Reed, despite that he played well here at the PGA Championship last year, and he's actually done decently well here. Well, let's see here. He's finished... Patrick Reed has played in this tournament 5 times, not including the PGA Championship, and he has finished... Well, he finished tied for 12th last year, but that wasn't at Quail Hollow. So he is a 28th, a 58th, a 32nd, and 32nd. So actually his course history here outside the PGA Championship isn't that great. So yeah, this is kind of a nice spot to just kind of go away from Patrick Reed, I think, just for this week. Moving on to Hideki. This is just for my 2 cents. I basically am just going to say play Hideki Matsuyama every single week until further notice. That's just kind of the way I'm playing it. Hideki is one of the best tee to green players in the game. I know he's 128th off the tee, but it's one of those things where I fully believe in Hideki that he will turn that around very quickly. And Hideki is not historically 128th off the tee. He's usually one of the best drivers of the golf ball, and I have more faith that he is going to turn that around very quickly. It's just kind of one of like this isn't something going off of data like a data regression thing, other than just saying like Hideki normally doesn't do this. But this is just more just my opinion and my instinct and my evaluation of Hideki as a golfer, as opposed to just saying like there's some huge like statistical reason why it should happen, other than the fact that he normally is a very good driver of the golf ball. So there's that. And he's 19th in approaching the green, which is obviously good. Putter is running slightly hot, if I remember right, which is a slightly negative thing, I guess. But minus 0.320. But again, he's at a 0.231 this year. And again, this is, with this model here, it's weighting 2017 a little bit more. And I think he just kind of had more of a bad 2017 year. I think Hideki's about an average putter just overall, and maybe even a touch above average. That's just my personal opinion. And so I think this minus 0.320 should be more like a minus 0.2, maybe minus 0.1. So I just don't think it's really that negative, personally, in my opinion, for Hideki. So Hideki also, I just think overall, 9,400 I think is actually just a really good price for him. And so I think you will be getting, and I don't think he'll be that highly owned, because Hideki just hasn't been in the spotlight too much this year, while still having relatively like decent results. 19th at the Masters, I guess, is not great, but he did have 12th at the Farmers Insurance Open and everything like that. And he's been in a lot of tournaments, and he's only missed one cut, which was at Phoenix, and that was because he withdrew after shooting 69 the first day. So essentially, Hideki has not missed a cut the entire year, and so I don't think Hideki's season's been as bad as some people have made it out to be. Phil and Tiger, okay, which is really kind of funny now because I'm talking about regression of strokes gained off the tee here a little bit. Phil and Tiger are really bad strokes gained off the tee. Phil is 160th. That's nothing abnormal. Phil's usually bad strokes gained off the tee, and Tiger Woods is 151st. And Tiger, obviously, we know that's still like the big question for Tiger is, can he drive the golf ball long and in the fairway consistently? So I'm not that into Phil or Tiger this week, and I'm particularly not into Phil in GPPs, and I mainly say that because he will be higher owned. And if you do take a look at Phil, as far as the course history goes, actually, I don't have that here. Shoot. But I'll just tell you right here. Phil Mickelson's played in this tournament 14 times. He has made the cut all 14 times, and his average finishing place in this tournament is 10.3. So he's averaging finishing in 10th place in this tournament. His course history here is insane. And because he's only 9,200, it makes me think his ownership is going to be really high. And I'm just going to go and say this: if there's a bold take or that you would want to, or a bold play that you want to go with, is maybe fading Phil, even if you're making like a bunch of lineups. This is an extremely strong field. This golf course in Wells Fargo, or in Quail Hollow, has definitely gotten tougher since they made the renovations. And I also will just say that because Phil's just as bad as he is off the tee, like I'm sure he's good at this golf course, and like there's maybe like a little something to it, but because Phil is that bad in strokes gained off the tee, and there is a pretty decent statistical correlation to it for this tournament, I'm willing to say that this would be this is a nice spot here to make a fade. And honestly, at the end of the day here, this is such a strong field here at the top. Like, you're going to have to probably at least like fade a couple guys, or you're going to have to like limit your exposure against some like chalky plays here at the very least here, even if you're making a bunch of lineups. And I think Phil is the best spot to do it. So that would be my take. And then Tiger here, like, I will fully buy into Tiger actually in a few spots, potentially here in the future. I just want to have him play on a golf course where strokes gained off the tee doesn't matter. And so this is kind of one of those golf courses for it. And so I'm not that into Tiger this week overall. It's pretty much that simple. Tommy Fleetwood, you know the drill for me on Tommy Fleetwood. I'm all in on Tommy Fleetwood. I'm still salty that they did not show one of his golf shots on Sunday's final round, even though he was in the third to last pairing, like at the Masters. Like, I'm still still salty about that. I ranted quite a bit on that on Twitter, but in any case, yeah, so that's it for me. So yeah, Fleetwood's my favorite. Fleetwood and Hideki are my favorite in the 9K range, and then Fowler would be my favorite in GPPs for the top, like, the 10K and above, and then Justin Thomas would be more the cash play, I think. Even and Justin Thomas is fine in GPPs too, don't get me wrong. It's not like, I don't think Justin is going to be super highly owned or something like that, but I would say Justin's a little bit better in cash as far as that goes. I'll touch on 8K and cheaper in the forum as we get closer to tee off. I'm recording this on a Monday night. I'm going to be out of town tomorrow, so I actually may not get my list of golfers up till sometime during the day Wednesday. I hope I can get it done before then, but honestly, it probably won't happen. So, but I will get it up on by Wednesday for you guys to look at and everything like that. And so, good to have golf back. So thanks for watching as usual. I'm at Nicky Skevich on Twitter. Daily Fantasy Winners is on Twitter at DFantasyWinners, and then very much appreciate all the subscriptions to the YouTube channel. All right, good luck, everyone.